everybody. Welcome to Women in Production Management. We pretty much just defined what that is. Congratulations for getting to the room. That was your first time. You'd never be a good production manager. So I'm just going to introduce everybody, and then they're going to introduce themselves, what they do, how long they've done it, and how they got into it. So, yeah, that'll take about a minute. As you can see, apart from lovely Hannah, we're all of a certain age, so that should take us most of the seminar. Anyway, my name is Rushton-Reed, but I won't talk about me. This is Hannah Lobb. It's Lobb, isn't it? Yeah. And Hannah is production manager of Theatre Kilroy. This is Jacqui, Leigh, who has been production manager for 30 years as a freelancer. Doesn't look it though. And is now teaching the next generation at RADA. And this is Sacha, who had the career I always wanted, but somehow I didn't get. Anyway, Sacha was production manager at the National Theatre for very many years. Then went into higher management and now is working for
Mark Ringsburg.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And she's just done Tina Turner, the musical. And another one.
No, Tina.
As production manager. So, ladies, who'd like to go first and just talk a little bit about how you got into your career and why you love it so much?
Well, because I'm at the end of the road. Okay. So, positive history. Always starting somewhere, so I trained in lighting. I won a scholarship from the ABTT, Arts Council. I dare not say what century that was in. But I trained in lighting, I worked through the lighting route, I became a trainee, assistant, chief, went on to lighting design. Joe Town was a better lighting designer than I was, so I stopped doing that. And thought, actually I want to know what everybody does. I want to know all sorts of departments, it all fascinates me. And so I deep-ended myself into production management. And I started doing a bit of touring, and I actually became production manager at Mountview. And if there's any graduates here, I didn't know what I was doing, so I was learning. I was getting paid to do the course, basically. Since then, I've been freelancing for a number of years throughout the UK. I've production managed in the United States, in the Middle East, in Europe. And I've recently, just this past year, taken on RADA as head of production there. And so the new journey begins, where I start feeding that information to our new production managers, so that there will always be great production managers in the world. Hopefully.
So I didn't realise there was a whole careers that happened behind the scenes when I was at school, and nobody ever told me that. But I decided I quite liked it, having a few school plays. So I went and did a performance arts degree and discovered that I really hated acting, which was lucky, and got involved in stage management, and did sort of small and middle scale touring as a stage manager, and ended up as a company stage manager at the Leigh in Edinburgh. And came back to London and joined a middle scale touring company as a company stage manager. And the production manager left, and I thought, there's so much more to theatre than actors and props. So I said, can I have a go at that? And because I felt I had this sort of confidence to say, can you give me a go? But I knew that at that time, I thought I really don't know enough about this job. So I paired up with a friend of mine who was a sort of technical manager, and I said, why don't you let us both do this job together? And after about 6 months, he lost interest, and then I carried on production managing. And I stayed with them for about 5-6 years, and it was the best sort of education, really, because I toured all round England to all those middle scale touring venues. So I really learned got my stripes doing that. Then I did a bit of event management for a festival, joined a production company, and then sort of by default really ended up at the National, took a tour in without a joint, and ended up working there for 9 years as a production manager. Then decided that I'd sort of done production management, or I'd done production management at the National, so I went to the Globe for a year as exec producer, and was going back to the National as head of production, where I ran the production department and the workshops, and really got under the skin of sort of management of a huge department actually, and then became director of producing and planning. And I left last year, and I joined Martin Steiner and production management. Went back to production management after 7 years and did TV musical. That's my fabulous.
Hannah?
I, from school, fairly early on, found out about stage management and went into, decided that that was the path I wanted to take. So I trained at Rose Bruford on their stage management course and graduated from there and worked as an ASM, resident ASM at the Churchill Theatre in Bromley, and then moved to Chester as a stage manager, as a DSM, and then moved to Yorkshire and ended up working as a freelance stage manager, but around York Theatre Royal, West Yorkshire Playhouse, Harrogate Theatre. And that was kind of a total of about 12 years of stage management, but mostly within producing regional rep theatres. I, within that kind of time, had a baby, and then went back to stage managing, and then kind of was looking out for the production management role that might suit my changed family life situation. And the role of deputy production manager came up at Theatre Clearance, which I applied for, having not really production managed anything before, but having a lot of stage management experience. And the role was such that I was working with a production manager for Theatre Clearance, and the shows were shared between us. So the smaller scale shows, the theatre and education shows were ones that were given to me to production manage as a kind of a learning basis. And that was 10 years ago, and so I worked up now to production manager and production manage much bigger scale shows than I did when I started there. But it was a really good grounding in kind of venue-based production management, which I know doesn't exist so much anymore. But I learned, you know, everything I know really about production management in terms of doing it, from working with amazing creative teams at Theatre Clearance over the last 10 years.
Excellent. So I'll just give you a little bit about me as well, so you know why I'm here. I have remembered today that I was actually once a production manager. Amazing. I forgot. But I was production manager at Holland Park Theatre for a good few years. I came into the industry as an actor, then went into stage management because I lied. I told them that I'd done stage management. I never had. I went and bought a book in French's and just learned the whole thing. The only thing I really got wrong was some of the calls. And then ended up as a production manager, also had a baby somewhere along the way, and then decided from Holland Park that I really liked lighting. So I then went and did electronic engineering and became ultimately deputy lighting manager at Glyndebourne via the Royal Opera House and a few other places. And then after that I set up my own lighting and distro company, and then went into garden lighting, and then by some weird freak ended up as a journalist at Lighting and Sound International, where I discovered that there was a communications issue in our industry, so I went into PR. So I'm not on the coalface anymore, but I'm always meeting people who are. Anyway, the thing is, it's a circuitous route into production management. You can come from all sorts of different routes. And we kind of were talking about dispelling the myths of the fact that you had to have every technical discipline under your belt. So let's talk about that, shall we?
Well, I think as a young production manager, which I'm not anymore, that I always felt nervous that I needed to know everything. I needed to know construction. I needed to know how to CAD. I needed to know how the sound system went in. I needed to know how the lighting system went in. Now, I had a pretty good chance that I knew how the lighting system went in, because that was my route in. But actually, it's absolutely, to dispel the myth, you don't need to know everybody's job. What you do need to know, you need to trust your teams to do their job and to bring their knowledge to production. But you're just kind of sitting over there and ensuring that you've got the right person to do the right job in the right amount of time. I mean, I had a conversation with a student the other day. They're saying, oh, it was a production management student, said, I need to know all of the costume budgets. Like, no you don't, give them their money, let them get on with it. They'll give you a shout if they get over budget, because you have to trust your staff, and you absolutely don't need to know everything in detail. That's certainly my experience from that. What about you, Sacha?
Yeah, and I think the problem is with when you're young, you don't necessarily have the confidence to admit you don't know things, and actually as you get older you realise that it's actually fine to say I don't know, and you build up a group of people you know that you can call on for advice. And so I think a lot of it's about confidence, and I think we were talking earlier about the sort of female psyche maybe, in that I think that there is a confidence issue around, especially going into what seemingly feels like a very male area of work.
Yeah.
And I know that actually a lot of women I've worked with over the years don't need encouragement, or somebody to say, actually you know, just give it a go, you can do that, or I see something in you that means that you could do this role. You know, sometimes it's not even in their sort of psyche that it's a role that could be taken on. So I think my biggest thing at the moment is, how do we get more women into the profession, and that's for all of us to try and make a change really. And I think my message really is that is asking men to acknowledge that women need more encouragement, or need to be fed back to. And I think that we're bound to make vast generalisations in this discussion because I know a lot of men who do that. But I think being aware of that is really key. And there are certain things that I've done in my career that I would never have done if someone hadn't said, go on, give it a go. You've definitely got something, you definitely could do that. And we were talking earlier with David saying about how men will look at job descriptions and say, oh yeah, I can do that. Even though there might be 5 things on that job description that say you can't do. Whereas women often will go, I can't do that. I can't do all of it.
Well, they just see one thing that they can't do.
Yeah.
And they go, I can't apply for that then. There's one thing I can't do.
I mean, I think it's good now that colleges are doing courses where, people are taught what job description to expect and what skills they're... Because when we went into it, to be honest, we didn't really know what...
Well, I was saying that,
we made it up.
I never met another production manager until I production managed for about 8-10 years.
Yeah.
So I literally made it up, and then you sort of realise, okay, well I've made it up and it sort of works.
and you're hoping that the other production manager has made it up as well, and you're trying to get to a point. I had an interesting conversation with a fellow production manager at Chichester, and he said to me, it's so nice to talk to another production manager. Because we never meet, we never talk, we're on our own in this isolated world where we're kind of supporting our creative teams and supporting our technical teams, but we're kind of a little bit isolated there. And that's the truth of it. And as production managers, I mean, I've never seen so many production managers here in one day, but it's having that opportunity to get confidence from each other as well, I think.
And I think also it's very different between being a resident production manager like you are. So you were saying, you know, that you're working with the same set builders, costume makers, all of that, and so you're developing a relationship. Whereas when you're freelance, you know, you're going out there. One team could be amazing, but the next team you get could be a right bunch of la-las. They may not be, but they could be. And so, you know, is it a good idea, do you think, to maybe come through a producing theatre and learn your way through that way? You've got some stability in the rest of the people, or?
I think that's definitely a benefit when, like you were saying about the confidence thing, you know, that was definitely my concern when I first started, that I wasn't confident enough to go for a production manager job. Because even though I might be able to muddle through and do it, I wasn't confident that they would believe I could do it. And so by being in a situation where you're supported by a team, a department, a building who are kind of trusting you to take that show out or to kind of manage it in the right way, but they're always to kind of ask questions or kind of deal with bigger problems that might arise, was just a brilliant way of learning it. And I think that opportunity isn't there so much these days in the way that buildings, certainly producing venues, might have a production manager but won't necessarily have a deputy production manager or assistant production manager. Or likewise, they might have stopped producing and just have a technical manager, and the production managers come in if they do co-productions or however it might work. And I think you're right about not meeting other production managers. It becomes that thing of, you kind of go, well, who can I ask about the best way to try this?
I mean, that was the beauty of working at National, was we had a production office full of production managers, and that was an amazing experience because there was always, you know, Katrina and there was a constant flow of, you know, information and people who knew what you were going through and support and information. I mean, the biggest problem is there's not that many permanent jobs in a radio. And I remember, you know, when I was younger in London thinking, well, there's only five or six permanent jobs you can get as a production manager, and they were taken for years, you know, there wasn't much movement in them. So,
lighting managers.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, where do you go? I suppose once one shifts, then they all move around. And
I suppose you're the right age group, just as one slips off. I know it's terrible.
But going back to the kids thing, actually, you know, I didn't have you know, I've got 2 children, so I was limited to, I don't want to leave my kids, and I needed to work in London. So actually, one of the reasons, I mean, apart from that, I had an amazing time at National, one of the reasons that I say there was it was incredibly varied, but I knew where I was every day. I didn't have to go and, you know, tour or travel the world, or, you know, and that became really key, obviously. So, but again, there's not that much option in London.
It's quite interesting because I mean, I work a lot in the rock and roll side of things, and there's a lot less female production managers in rock and roll. But also, they really tour, they really tour, and they never meet anybody. You know, lighting designers don't meet other lighting designers, so nobody's really that confident about what they're doing. They're kind of like, somebody going to find out that. But the other thing is that what I discovered was that production and tour managers were responsible for other people's well-being, and yet they'd accidentally ended up in the job, and some of them had successfully ruined other people's lives by the way that they treated them, and some of them are brilliant. And I think, you know, I mean, this is the first time I've come across the Production Managers Forum, but I would have thought something like the National Theatre, the Royal Opera House, and all that, they should be setting the standards for best practice, so that it could be shared amongst production managers who are in that weird, what do you think? That weird isolated place where they don't know whether they're making it up or not. I mean, obviously, if you become a production manager, you've had experience of something, you haven't come in cold.
I mean, still 30 years on, there are pockets of me thinking, not quite sure I know what to do with this one. And but as you get older, as you get more experience, you have more contacts.
But also, isn't that the beauty of the job?
That's the beauty of the
Because
job.
it's never ever, you
Yeah.
know, the same.
Yeah.
You know, never, one show is never said, what, every now and then you think, oh, I might be able to adapt that thing I did, you know.
Yes, and you kind of pick things
Make
up
it happen for the-
from your
yeah.
past, you carry your past along with
Yeah.
you, and that's your experience, that's your Bible really, isn't it? And it's but interesting when, you know, as a freelance production manager, I would be, you're hired, okay, go to the venue, recce the venue, meet the people. It's like, oh, I've got to learn to love a whole new team of people, you know, and work with them, and hopefully it be pleasurable, because I'm going to be stuck in a dark box with them for 3 weeks. And then that relationship kind of drifts off, but it's always kind of there, because they ask you back, you think, great, I did a good job the last time, so, and it goes on, and you grow your portfolio of people, which in hand grows your portfolio of knowledge and your wealth. And I think that's something very much to cherish as you go along your freelance journey, certainly. And for the first time in a long time, I'm now resident somewhere, and my technical manager is always there, and it's great. So, you know, the two things are wonderful. But, I mean, physically, it's a hard slog when you're freelancing, you're all over the place. It's really hard.
So do you, I mean, in terms of courses for production managers, is there like a 3-year degree course in production management?
Not that I am aware of. I joined RADA this time last year.
There's one.
There's one. And where is
What?
that?
Where is it?
Royal Central School of Speech and Drama.
Oh, excellent.
Cool.
And what breakdown of men and women do you have? Is it 50-50? Is it?
At the moment, it's probably more like 60-40 women. So
Right.
60% women, 40% men on
Right.
the course right now.
So, because I mean, you know, I tried to do some research on, you know, what gender balance was in the industry, and the only research I could do was my husband, because I looked all over the internet and they wouldn't tell me anything. But he's in theatres all the time as a lighting guy, and he said he doesn't meet in the West End, so not provincial theatre. And he's not in the National, because you're already making all the stuff that he would have made.
Now, I was trying to work out, actually, in the West End, having done Tina, I know that there's one other female production, I could be wrong, but I can only think of one other production manager who co-production managed something in the West End. Maybe she's done one on her own.
Yeah.
But does anybody know of any women who've done any West End shows? One, yeah. I know. And that's extraordinary that I'm only the second woman to a production manager show in the West End. That,
Yeah.
And actually I didn't even think of it. It was a friend of mine, Anna Ranson, who's production manager, who said, do you realise that you're the first, you know, woman who's done a show on her own?
I know, it's strange, isn't it?
That is ridiculous in this.
Like, there's a lot more in producing theatres, and I wonder whether that is because it's a more stable job, and, you know, I was asking you, you know, what sort of hours do you have to work? And I think the hours,
This is fascinating. I mean, having been a freelance production manager for about 35 years plus, I am also of a certain generation. And I think you're absolutely right in a lot of what you're saying. We are completely isolated.
yeah,
There is no job description. I always said if you put 4 production managers in a room and said, what's the job description, they couldn't actually tell you.
yeah,
Because they all do it their own way, their own different way. But I think that having done some bits of teaching as well, one of the things that I have been asked over the years as a production manager is, why don't you have an assistant in order to pass on and to train up? And my answer's been, who's paying for it? Because out of my fee, my office is a room in my house, and my fee, I can only just survive on. This is a very badly paid industry. Take West End out of it, this is a shitly paid industry. We know that. So, but I think that this is not just about women, but actually very much about women. That if you don't have a way of doing that break, it's great that there are production management courses, whatever. But you can't leave RADA Central Lambda
Absolutely.
and go, I'm a production manager. Whether you're male, female, black, white or blue, it can't happen. You actually have to have the way to the next part of the industry.
And I think all of us have probably done something before we became production managers.
Yes, oh absolutely. But the thing is, Hannah is right, going into deputy production manager, whatever, in a producing house, but that is like 1% of the work in this country. It doesn't exist. It's like assistant painters in reps. Pardon? I wish there was design assistants in reps. We're old enough to remember that actually they don't exist anymore. Directors in reps, trainee directors. You have to find another way of actually putting you guys with huge amounts of experience and knowledge to actually have a way of training people on the job.
Yeah.
Well,
And I don't know how to do it. So
I think it's pressure. I think it's people who are in positions that can do it to start putting pressure. I mean, what we started at the National Theatre and Production Office was a sort of deputy production management scheme where people came for 2 years
yes.
in order to, for precisely that reason, that people had been production managers elsewhere, and actually what they could learn in 2 years was working on at scale. Because that's that leap from sort of middle or small scale to, you know, do your own shows to suddenly being on a West End stage or even a #1 tour, or, you know, suddenly there's a big leap. And in a way that took quite a lot of, you know, engagement on our part within the production office to make that happen, to actually say this is what we want to do, this is why we want to do it. We as the National Theatre, when I was there, had a duty to, I mean, I got sort of interested in how you train up the next generation of people, and we put a massive drive in it. And similarly, when I took on Tina, I absolutely insisted I needed a deputy on that show. And, you know, if you push hard enough, and more and more shows are having deputies on them, actually, in the end, it did happen. So I'm not saying, it's about a cultural shift that we, in positions that where we can, have to make happen. And I think, you know, as you said, I think, you know, those venues where actually in the days of one production manager doing all the shows in a regional rep, which is how it always used to be, you know, that's not feasible anymore. So actually having a production manager dep is a really good opportunity for someone to...
But I think also we were talking earlier that as we get older, we get more confident. And I would have no compunction at my 40-year anniversary of being in the industry of saying, I need this. When I was a young production manager starting out, I would quake in my boots. I wouldn't dare ask.
I think that's where, you know, organisations like maybe Production Managers Forum, or where, you know, there's a collective of people that can agree, you know, how you should go out into the world of employment, how you should present yourself in terms of, you know, what kind of contract you want, what sort of hours you're going to do. Because I think, you know, it's like with any freelance gigging type thing, everybody's going, I want the job, I want the experience, especially at the lower end where people are young and keen, and, you know, they'll do the job for damn near nothing. And sometimes that can be disastrous, and sometimes it can be amazing. But there's no standard set. Do you know? I'm not saying let's all get into rules and regulations, but at least set a base fee for, you know, a tour, or I don't know whether you've got all of that.
No, at the moment we're still floating about.
And, you know, having a network of people that is connected through some kind of forum channel where people can just come on and go, I'm just being told I'm getting 50 quid a day to do this. Is that right? What should I ask for? Somebody else who's a bit more experienced can come back and go, well, you know, why don't you do this? Or why don't you try that? Or so I think really, as you say, there's an element of isolation, especially when you're touring, or you're not working in a big department, so you've got nothing to compare it with. So I think, you know, it's really crucial in this day where we can all communicate in so many different ways that maybe people have We tried it, we set up Women in Stage Entertainment. It was a bit ahead of its time, I know, amazing. It was in the 90s.
For it, because I wouldn't work in production management if it wasn't Women in Stage Entertainment. You set me up with a rather fabulous mentor who allowed me to come and follow her around on some gigs back in the day, which was lovely Jacqui Leigh. And I then quit stage management, went into production management and worked with Jacqui for the first time last year. But it was Women in Stage Entertainment that made it happen for me. So it was
amazing! Yeah! But I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Because there's that sort of career progression. I mean, anybody really, but I'm really thinking about women and their career progression, and whether you start out in lighting or stage management or sound, and suddenly realising at a certain point you want to do something else. How do you find out about it, and how do you make that crossover? And there isn't any path really. It's sort of if you know somebody or you were introduced that you can. But I think I know lots of stage managers who want to do something different, and half of them wouldn't even think that they could be a production manager, and the other half have no idea how they get out of move into something different. And I think we don't have any structure to do that, which is a real shame, because I think everybody brings different skills to production management, and you should be able to come at it through any route, and actually you should, it's really good to have done something else. I don't, like you said, leaving college and becoming a production manager is not, you need to have some experience doing the ground work, I think.
And as a production manager, and I'm sure you guys, you can spot it. You could spot it in people that we work with that might be stage managers, or they might be lighting technicians, or they might be, and you can kind of see that there's a thing there that you can kind of go, they'd make a great production manager. And maybe it's just starting that conversation with them that makes them think about it, that makes it lead on to them pursuing that. But I think that there's definitely a kind of a way we can help that, maybe, by being able to kind of introduce that as an idea to those people who may not have thought of it.
Well, and then how do you do that leap? That is wages, how do you then, it's really difficult, isn't it, when you've worked your way up the ladder within a lighting, for example, and then you have to suddenly leap over and maybe take a cut in salary.
Fight or flight. Phil's got a question.
Maybe the sort of hole that's been fallen into is if you're being trained up as a production manager while you're in drama school, and that's the role that you're specifically honing, and then when you come out of drama school, like you say, you're unlikely to go into a reasonable sized venue as a production manager for a good few years. You're then stuck with the fringe, and the thing about being expected is to be able to do everything. On the fringe, chances are you'll have a few people there. You might well have to do more than one thing to actually be able to put a show on the fringe. So maybe that's where that comes from, that sort of feeling of having to be able to do everything.
I think you certainly start learning your craft. I mean, kind of back in the day, it was like, I've got a paintbrush in one hand, I'm sewing something up in another hand. I'm trying to kind of find, does flints exist in Abu Dhabi? No, it doesn't. And it should do. But, you have to do it. Because you're on tour, you're isolated, you've got to get on with the show. With respect, you've got a bunch of migrant workers that have come in to put a SCAF structure up for your show. And you're trying to coordinate that. The company can't afford to tour everybody, so it's you and 2 stage managers. And a costume supervisor. That's it. That's where you learn your craft.
Yeah.
And then you can start moving your way up.
Is there a kind of question for everyone in the room, really? Would there be any interest in some kind of postgraduate training? Because a lot of production managers, myself included, and as you guys have already said, come from something else. You come from lighting, or you come from this, or you come from that, or whatever. And again, as you've already said, and certainly me as well, when you start going into production management, you have a nagging feeling like, I'm sure I'm missing something, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, which you probably keep forever, but...
it never goes.
If there was some kind of, not many people, by the time they've got that point, they've been in the industry for, say, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years,
not many people, I think, are going to want to go, right, I'm going to stop doing that now, I'm going to do a 3-year degree, which you could do. But would they be interested in some kind of postgraduate training which would help to ease that transition and give people that confidence to go, yeah, actually, I have got the experience I need, I can fill in a few of the gaps, you know, which might be, oh, I've never really understood running a budget on this site, or I've never really understood some bits of health and safety that I've never encountered, or whatever. So there's sort of a general question for anyone and everyone. Do you see what I mean? Would people take that up?
I think there's possibly a benefit of that sort of training, but I don't think anything can beat training on the job. And whilst a course might do that, it's almost like the need for an apprenticeship or a mentorship, which combines the training, but with a production manager who you can be with on a day-to-day basis. And learn how those little things that you might not kind of know about work in reality, rather than just sitting in a classroom learning about it.
I think that's what a postgrad course could be. I think
on the job?
Well, I think there's kind of two ways. We're currently discussing this at Central, which is why I'm kind of interested in this particular. I think there's two ways that someone could choose to do a course like this. At postgrad level, it would be part-time. So the idea would be you could do that course whilst working on something.
I think your postgrad level is assisting all of these wonderful production managers here.
Yeah, and then the other way is, like at Central, for example, a person could be managing a show. You know, we stage a lot of fair stages. Do you know what I mean? So there could be those two options. It's not classroom learning. It's very much, okay, go ahead and do the job, but you've got that support whilst you're doing it, like a mentor, like a kind of turbocharged mentor kind of process.
I think that's a really good idea, but I also think that the idea of the mentorship thing needs venues and production companies to kind of embrace that, like the apprenticeship scheme way of working, where you kind of, as a company or a venue, you kind of take on board the training of
or like stage one producers.
Exactly that
scheme,
sort of thing, yeah.
You know, if you could find something like that.
And those schemes for
really
directors as well, aren't there? That sit somebody in a venue for a year or whatever, and they learn.
Can I just throw an actual example of which I'm working on at the moment?
Yeah.
A theatre in the Midlands needs a new production manager. And they decided they wanted to make up the technical manager, who would not be the production manager, to a production manager. And he turned around and he said, I will do that on one condition, is that for a year I have a mentor that you pay. And they went, fine. And he rang me and asked me to do it. So I'm now on the end of the phone, I go up for meetings, I look through his white card models, we discuss about how to do things, look at budgets, all of those things. I'm not being paid a vast amount of money, but the concept came from the management that went, if we want this person to go up a level and to go into a production management because we think he can do it, he needs a way to actually get those skills that he hasn't got yet. And so we will put our money where our mouth is, and we will actually make that happen. And I thought that's really good. As I've never come across it before, which is why I'm mentioning it, because it's a new one for me.
I think that's
and I hope it works. I hope it works, which is why I'm mentioning it, is that I think it's a real positive way, but that also comes from the management to say, we will actually budget for this and pay for this.
I've got a question about that. Was he approached by the management, or did he put himself forward?
I believe he put himself up.
Yeah.
They offered him the job, and he said, I will only take
it's just
it on
interesting because
this
this brings us slightly back to the female-male version of the world, where, you know, how do we get women to put themselves forward without, you know, off their own back, not necessarily, they won't necessarily.
But if they knew that there was a way of actually there be that support for the first year, then actually they might go, do you know, I'm going to take a punt on this and have a go, because I know I'm not going to be let out to dry.
but it's also, I think, it's putting that idea in their head and actually saying, is that yours?
It's not.
It's not bottle box at 4 o'clock.
You know, I really am interested in how we start having a conversation with people who work across the, you know, across the theatre industry to say this could be an option.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about it? And this is why it's great.
Yeah, just coming. I'm Ruth from the Bristol Theatre School, and we run a postgraduate production management course.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. Is that anyone talking there? It's really successful in that, particularly for women, all the students we've had over the time that it's been available have been women. And they've all come from, the course is based for people who, like all of us, have had some prior knowledge or career already in the industry. Because it's an absolute prerequisite. You can't production manage from standing still. So we attract people from all different disciplines. But I think, like the problem with your guys, it comes down to money. A year's fees now at higher education is £10,000, and that's just the fees.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got to then find, you know, your maintenance, so accommodation, transport, you know, it becomes cost prohibitive, I'm afraid to that. So it's kind of, I think there's a middle ground to be had between a sort of day release, if you like, or a local theatre and a local drama school that can kind of come together and make sure that there's that segue from, if you can afford the training or get, you know, the student loan for the training, is to then make sure on graduation you've got those contacts. So you'll bring your contacts that you've had from your previous career. You'll have a mentor within, we have, you know, the person who runs our course is a production manager, so they're a mentor, they're a freelancer, they assist them on all the gigs that they do, they production manage the various student productions we do. So they do come out with good rounded skills, but they still need that level of trust within a management who's prepared to accept there is maybe a shortcoming between someone new to the industry and someone who's, you know, had plenty of experience. But the course does exist. I just want to put that out there. But I'll talk to you later.
I didn't realise it was actually a postgrad. I'd heard of it. Radisson, in fact, training.
Yes, I was just about to say allocate.
Yeah, because I know Anna fairly well. I didn't realise it was actually a qualification.
In fact, Anna came on placement and then ended up coming back as an assistant, and now she's permanent.
And that's
so
the
that's a
ideal
real
case,
success
really.
story.
Yeah.
She went away and then came back, and went away and then came back. So she's done quite a good cost section. But having done the placement, she had all those contacts at the theatre that she could.
Yeah. And it's back down to contacts and mentoring.
And on that one, how many people can you take then?
4.
So there's a, do you know what I mean? Maybe 4's perfect, and there's only that many people wanting to come into it.
Absolutely.
Or maybe there's actually lots more people. Do you know what I mean? Everyone is always restricted by how many students they can take on and have a.
I think also the more we as production managers meet each other and talk to each other and say, this is the job, this is the gig, I think more people will go into it.
But also one of the points of the Production Managers Forum, one of our ambitions, which has not been entirely fulfilled because it's funny, because we're all quite busy, is to be mentors. You know, I mean, the panel here, other individuals who've associated themselves with the Production Managers Forum, most of them said they would be happy to be a mentor. You know, whether it's a phone call or a visit or whatever. You know, I have capacity to be a mentor for various people, as I'm sure other individuals here would be happy to do so. So where there isn't a formal environment to do this, you know, we can do this amongst ourselves. I mean, the Production Managers Forum started off with 6 production managers turning up in a pub with models, going, I'm not sure how to do this. What do you think? Exactly what you had in your production department. And that, you know, because we have the advantages of the virtual world, the digital world, we can do this for each other. And that's one of the things it is very isolating and can be quite scary. But we are actually all here to help each other out.
Yeah, I think, you know, that things like, if you look at something like the ALD or, you know, some of the BEC2, whatever, where you've got a community and maybe they go and meet for a drink or
they have Christmas lunches and everything.
They have Christmas lunches. And I tell you what, I'm looking for another Christmas
get our shit together.
I think a Christmas lunch is a good one. I'm on that. Anyway, I think, that to create a sense of community, to be able to sort of work out, you know, what are the pay levels, what are the expectations from different types of production management, like being full-time, like being at the National Theatre, like being freelance, you know, how is that divvied up? Because you may not, or I may not think I want to go out on tour, and you may not think I want to go into a venue, but we do have actually.
Well, I
Anyway.
couldn't tour anymore. I got to a point where I thought, I want to see where I live. I don't want a key code to get into my front door. I want to go home. I want to see my partner, and I want to go home, and I want to walk the dog. And that is priceless. And touring is amazing. It's a wonderful experience. You see the world. You get loads of air miles. But I think it's got a shelf life.
Well, that's also interesting, because what we're saying is we've got people to come into the industry, and then what happens to us oldies as we reach a point where, you know, I know that I'm physically not, you know, my knees ache, and my slip disc from loading the vans for years is really creaky, and so, you know, what is the career path post being a production manager?
And I think the great thing is that we have loads of bloody brilliant connections.
No, I know, brilliant connections and experience, and having sort of put my finger into producing and general managing, it's quite interesting how useful the knowledge of a production manager is. You know, one of the reasons that I sort of went for the director of producing planning job at the National was that I had been too far down the line in the production process, and I was getting more and more frustrated that the decisions were being made really for early on without any technical input. So, and this bugged the hell out of me. I was like, I want to be able to influence decisions that are made before they get to a production manager. And so that was my sort of absolute passion, that was what I wanted to do, which is I did hopefully try and make some decisions that were, you know, did make sense. But sort of delving into that whole world, I realised that actually it is another world, but having more people that have a technical production brain in it makes a massive difference.
And more on boards.
More on boards.
I mean, you know, boards really do benefit from, you know, the presence of people who actually understand what happens in the building, in the big room, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, and you know, understand about show making, like properly all the way through. And I think that's underrepresented.
Massively so. I mean, how many people here are on boards?
Yes.
I mean, it's changing, isn't it? From like all play, I was on board of the Royal Exchange for a while. And God, I can't remember his name, Mike Griffiths, who was at Trevor production. So I mean, it is changing.
But you can name them.
I can name them.
Isn't that residents who are on the board of their theatre? I mean, I was on the board at Lancaster 30 years ago because I was the production manager. But to actually have a board of management that brings in an external person, which is what they are, to say we'll have her because she's got knowledge that we haven't got. That's pretty rare.
We've got on our board at the Bush, we've got Mark Bacon on the board.
He's the technical director, they're all up.
Yeah, and he's
Bristol
incredibly useful to have on board.
But that's a
He
rare
can read things at board level. Also, has been able to act as a mentor for me. If I've got things that I need someone to sound off or get some advice on, he's always on the end of the phone if I need him. And I think that's, as you said, it's incredibly useful to have them there and to feed into things at that higher, earlier on level in the process.
It's a bit like having a non-executive director, really, isn't it? But with that specialist skill. But I mean, that's the other thing about having a community, isn't it? That
I don't think necessarily boards know how useful it can be.
No.
You know.
But also the individuals have the courage to put themselves forward, just like we were talking about with job descriptions, and with women feeling a certain nervousness about going for job description. Yeah, I'm not sure that half the production...
Well, I only applied for a board, and it's a charity board. I only applied because somebody said, why don't you apply for it? And I would never, ever again would have thought of doing it, and it's been absolutely fascinating. And I'm passionate about the charity, and it's connected to this, and it's great to be involved in that. But I would never, ever put myself forward for it. you know, and it was just someone saying, well, come on, that would be really good for you. And I was like, oh, okay. But that was totally alien. And again, somebody saying, you can do this, that it is a thing that you can do.
And it does tend to be the connections you've got. I think, you know, with your production managers forum, you know, you've got those connections to the people who might need people on their board. Who, I think it is a matter of communicating that, you know, you've got all these people with all these different skills, and some of them can help with mentoring, some of them can be on boards, but unless people are talking and acting as a group, so like the union of production managers or whatever.
We're trying to avoid that.
But you know what I mean? And you say, here we are, we're a centre of excellence, we do professional development, we've got a group of production managers, we know all their skills, and you know, and we've got a list of them who are interested in being mentors or advisors. Just that in itself, which wouldn't take that long to make up, then you've got something to go out there with. Because when everybody's going out as an individual, trying to do their thing, trying to say, this is how we've got to do it, and then somebody else disagrees or whatever, you've got some leverage, do you know what I mean?
I think it's also the nature of production management, in that I know that when I was production managing full-time at the National, I just did the show. That is all, you know, you get absolutely, you can't think about anything else, it's all consuming. And then, oh yeah, there's another one. So you don't actually come up for air and think about the state of production management for women in the UK,
of course, no.
You know, how we could make change, or, you know, I think we're a group of people who have been embroiled in making shirts for years and years and years, without really thinking, putting your head above the parapet. Oh right, this is not, we've got to make change.
There's no time to reflect, is there?
No.
Until you get to our age.
Yeah, old and
well, and then people just.
And then we're still working as hard at our age.
So, I mean, are there any people who are sort of looking to get into production management from? Oh. So what's your background and what are you trying to achieve?
Background in stage management, but I'm out right now, so Jacqui's been.
Okay. Well, you've got a perfect lady there then.
Very lucky. Yeah, so just looking to get into PM as much as I can, but obviously just trying to soak up all the information and knowing that I need to have some sort of way in and way forward. So yeah, so trying to test.
But I think when you first came, Athena, you were absolutely, I'm going to be a production manager.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's taken you your first year to think, it's been really useful to pick up these, you know, lighting, sound, stagecraft, prop making, scenery, all of that. And I think you're about to go into your last rotation and then you think, oh, I get it now. So you're less, I'm going to be a production manager when I leave. I know in a number of years, but that you know that I need to probably do a bit more out the road before I become that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think also going back specifically to women, there is, you know, people coming through colleges, all very equitable, and, you know, getting your first job, all of that. And then you kind of hit these things where you may become primary carer for whoever. It might be children, it might be, it's not always women, but it generally is. And, you know, then you put your career on hold. And as you say, because we're all working in isolation to a degree, getting back into the industry can be quite difficult, and being confident enough to go, well, I got those skills there, now how do I get back in? And it still is the who you know network
I think
a lot.
I think specifically in this industry, I don't have children, but you know, a lot of friends do, that we're a bit behind the times in supporting that. And one of the questions I said, so where's the creche at the ABTT trade show? There isn't one. It probably wasn't even thought about. And that has to change. You know, I have colleagues, male colleagues, who are probably working at home today because their partner is working and they can't bring the kid, which is ridiculous. It's a trade show. So, you know, the umbrella organisations have to start changing as well,
I think we've got some, you know, there's all sorts of cans of worms, aren't there, in terms of working practice, the way that we have set up, the way we schedule, the fact that, you know, a show doesn't even get a day anymore, you're straight in and you're performing on the Monday or whatever. You know, everything's being tightened up so much that actually even with working time directive, because a lot of people delivering this stuff is freelance, they're not necessarily regulating themselves because they want a job, blah, blah, blah. And I think we've got a massive amount of hidden exploitation in this industry, which is why I think it is time that there needs to be collectives putting pressure on producers.
There is PIPA, which is Parents in Performance Arts.
Yeah, I had a look at their website.
People, various venues have adjusted their employment practices, they've changed the hours of rehearsals, and people have started to be more aware of the difficulties that people with care responsibilities have, and it is moving forward. It has started, nothing's completed.
It's interesting, I mean, I think there's a massive issue with, you know, kids preschool, but then there's like from 5 to 20, which is quite a big section of time. So, you know, we do get fixated with babies, which is definitely an issue.
Exactly.
But what happens,
But you've got to get to a parents' evening.
or a school play, or a...
Well, actually, 5 to 11 is the really hard one. Because when they're in nursery, you can drop them off at 8 o'clock in the morning and pick them up at 6:30. When they're at school at 9 and then 3:30, they want... That's not a day. I mean, you know, that's their day's work. What am I going to do with that? That's much harder. And we are an industry that works 3-session days. That's our normal working practice, is a 3-session day. And we're a 6-day-a-week industry.
Exactly.
And I know so many good women stage managers, for instance, who've just gone, I can't do it anymore because I can't actually do 8 shows a week, 3-session days on turnarounds and all the rest of it.
That's why
and we lose huge numbers. Really good quality technical people, stage management people, and for production managers, you're right, it is all consuming. It's 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
Because simply that mobile phone and internet, it doesn't stop. You can't even turn the fucker off.
And the terrible thing is that it's an industry that has lost a huge amount of invested skills.
Absolutely.
You know, money's being spent on these people. They've developed their careers, they've got to a certain stage in their career, and then suddenly, you know, they're transferring their skills somewhere else. Yes.
Hiya. I'm not production manager, and I never particularly had desire to be one. I was always a stage manager. And I'm exactly that. I have just dropped out because of having a child, and I've tried to make it work, and it's not how I want to parent at the moment. And I was quite cynical when people started up, because I was like, oh, it's all actors saying let's make the call work around us, and who the hell's going to care about anybody different? And I just got really annoyed with actors saying, oh, when I'm working away from home, we should work all the evenings during the week, and then I'll come in at lunchtime on Monday and leave at lunchtime on Friday so I can get back to London. And I'm like, what about the stage manager in York?
Yeah, exactly.
Who hasn't got childcare in the evenings? Anyway, so I totally fall into that camp, but I've been really heartened by it because I've been watching very carefully what's been happening as people have been pushing. And it is because the world is changing a bit at the moment, but it is changing at an alarming rate. And already quite a few organisations are saying, let's do job shares. And most of it at the moment is starting at ASN level. But I'm biding my time. And it's starting to come a bit more. And I now know of one DSN job share. And there are some stage manager job shares that are just about starting. And the National is thinking outside the box now, because if we're honest, I think they got a little bit caught with their pants down that somebody else started the conversation before them and they realised they should have been leading it. And now they're running with it. And I think that is really exciting. And I know that's a bit off topic because I'm not a production manager. But I'm finding this
No, but it's all
really-
part of the same
It's
thing.
the same thing,
Definitely the
and I
same
am finding
thing.
it's a fascinating conversation. And I'm also, I came here because I'm working in an office for a production company because I felt that that was something that could be manageable for me and my family at the moment. But and I came here just on a bit of a jolly, and I've actually found it the most inspiring day of going, maybe we need to get back in, and maybe there is a way of pushing it a bit harder.
But also, what other jobs within theatre can you do as a working mum that could either be part-time or within school hours? And I also think we ought to be thinking about that, especially when we're in organisations.
Yeah.
That.
Is it theatre consultancy?
Teaching. And we ought to be proactively selling those jobs as possible part-time, you know, mothers or fathers who want to work part-time. But we are really behind the curve, I think, within the industry about thinking about how we could, you know, maybe production management is a bit hard to do part-time, but maybe there is another way around it, you know, and have we really, but, you know, maybe you could have a production assistant who works part-time, I don't know, but it's just actually putting it on the agenda and just absolutely thinking, how can I flesh this out in a different way, and how can I make this work, and proactively trying to make things work and give opportunities to people who want to work in a different work pattern.
Sorry. So I'm just kind of at the moment I'm a technician. I do lighting, and I'm kind of working my way up to being like a crew chief, and I'm freelance. I'd like to maybe be looking to being a production manager one day. However, as I do majoritively physical job, and I'm freelance, I don't know if I ever wanted kids one day, how I would ever be able to kind of adapt around that, like, because the only options that seem to be at the moment is to go in-house and have that stability, working in a team in-house. So I don't know, it was just more of kind of a question, as you guys are kind of longer in the industry than me.
I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in a functional way, in as much as if you're a resident, then your organisation may well kind of be supporting you with any childcare or allowing you to go on time. If you're freelance, then you may be at home for big chunks of time. You know, I used to be at home prepping for weeks on end, and then I'd disappear off the face of the earth for 3-4 weeks. So, you know, that 3-4 week block doesn't work, does it? As far as childcare would be concerned. So I think
unless
it's
there's
kind of-
somebody stable at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I did some bonkers things. I mean, you can get away with them now, but I was a single parent and I toured with a baby. I didn't even tell the production that I was working on that I had one until I reloaded the truck to go on tour. And I put my portable cot in it. And when I'd done
this is pre-massive health and safety.
Well, they weren't responsible for the health and safety, because when I went and did the recce, I was stage manager for that particular production. I also went and saw a childminder in every single town my tour was going to. My daughter was 8 months old, and we only had one day where a childminder turned out to be not very good, and I had to pull her in at Leicester Haymarket actually. And the guys there were amazing. But I had to put her in a portable cot in a dressing room and then go and do the show, and people helped me.
She's turned out okay though.
She's turned out okay, yeah. She slept in flight cases, she's done it all, she's so well. Anyway,
that was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I think, you know, I look back and I think if I was going to do that again, I'd never do it. So I've tried touring and I've tried being a permanent member of staff, but when you're at a certain level, there's a big expectation from you, and you know, you can't be going, oh, I've got to go now, because so you're torn. So I did exactly what you did. I was just about to launch my lighting design career, and I went, I can't do this anymore, and I pulled out. But I do think that our working practices are
I found
weird.
it interesting. So I realised that I very rarely mention children.
Oh, I never.
Never. When I was young, you know, when I had my first child, wouldn't ever talk about it, wouldn't even mention I had a child. And actually, I realised I don't really talk about my kids in a work situation very much. But when I had my second child and went back to work, I had a very supportive male boss who allowed me to work 3 days for a bit and then 4 days. And I worked 4 days for quite a while until I realised I was doing the same amount of work and being paid 4 days a week. But also, I got a lot of stick from male colleagues who say, well, you know, I can't possibly work there. You know, she's not here on a Friday.
Yeah.
And, you know, 1 day a week. And I found that really hard, that was, you know, the undercurrent. I mean, definitely not everybody. It was probably 1 or 2 male individuals, but it was definitely around. And in the end, I went back full time, partly because I realised I was being paid less, but partly because it was just easier than getting stick for working 4 days.
Well, I was at Glyndebourne for 6 months before they even knew I had a child. I never spoke about it. And then when I was there, I said, eventually I plucked up the courage and said, you know, because we were on contracts for the season, and then there was a separate contract for the tour. And, you know, you'd be chosen for the tour. And I said, yeah, I can't be a deputy lighting manager and, you know, suddenly be out of work for 6 months. That's ridiculous. And I've got child to support anyway. And they went, child? And I went, yeah, I've got one. And I need a full-time salary. And I got the first full-time salary at Glyndebourne. But the funny thing was, all my crew went, you sold out. How are you going to represent our pay? And because I went, no, I haven't. I'm just in there as management now, so I can be even more effective. But I think, you know, it is about how you spin it as well, isn't it? You know, how you have to decide how much they want you in the first place and whether they think you're replaceable. That is ultimately it, I think. I don't know, what do you think? You've got children, haven't you?
I've got she's 12 now. But I left stage management, I thought I left stage management to have her. And she was 14 months old and I was like, I've got to go back. I can't do full-time parent thing. And my husband at the time was chief electrician, and he kind of went, well, why don't I give up work for a bit? And he did, and so he gave up a full-time kind of stable job in the theatre as a chief electrician, and I was allowed to go freelance. And it kind of rocked the boat a bit financially for a while. But I was lucky enough to know that I had a couple of jobs coming up, and so I stage managed probably for about another year or so.
Were you away a lot?
No, I was lucky. I was living in Harrogate, and I was working at West Yorkshire Playhouse and York Theatre Royal in Harrogate, and I was getting home every night, which was great. But I then, after about a year or so, kind of went, I'm missing stuff. You know, yes, I might have been with her during the daytime when we had shows in the evening, but then there were days where I was in rehearsals and I wasn't there, or I wasn't there in the evenings for the shows, or I was there. So that's when the full-time deputy production manager position came up, and it was going to be more 9 to 5 most of the time with the odd tech week thrown in. I kind of went for it, and it was the stability of the financial situation as much as anything else. And she was 2.5 when I got that job, and she's now nearly 13.
And has it worked? Does the balance work?
It works for me now. I mean, my husband is now full-time at Kilroy as well, and so we share a lot of the stuff, and she's old enough now, she comes into work and she sits in the office doing her homework. Sometimes if we have to work late and she's sat in tech. You know,
but is that okay? Is that acceptable within your organisation?
Yeah, that is acceptable, and I think we're lucky that we have had, for quite a while, in my experience certainly, that the theatre has been really accepting of parents with children, and we have been able to bring them in. And likewise, we have enough support within the building. If you have to go, oh my God, I've got to run away, there's always someone else who can pick up the slack when needed.
Yeah.
But I know we're lucky in that situation.
Because I think, you know, it would be impossible, wouldn't it, for a production manager to just go, I'm sorry, I've got an emergency, I've got to go.
Well, I did have, what was it with you? Ruby had chickenpox, or Poppy had chickenpox, and she was really ill, and I was like, gotta go, but I had a deputy at the time, so
exactly.
I could.
But it's a bit alien for a production manager.
It is, I found it really difficult.
I've got to go. We are merely humans at the end of the day.
And it was weird because I knew I needed to go, but I felt so dreadful telling people that's why I needed to go.
But actually, the slack exists in subsidised theatre, but does it exist in commercial theatre?
Yeah.
Probably not. No.
It doesn't exist in rock and roll either, not at all. There is no fat. And what I've noticed, in particular actually with lighting designers, is now they're all setting up mini practices where there's 3 or 4 of them operating, so that they can back each other up. They've got a work-life balance to a degree, but also they can compare notes because they're in the same position, especially rock and roll. You're gone and you don't see anybody else's show except on Instagram. And it's not really a good indication generally. They always put the best picture up. Anyway, so I think people are starting to find workarounds to make it work. And because they're becoming micro businesses, they're getting much more on their contracts, they're getting much more on, if somebody has to come off, then but also their clients expect a bit more. They expect that backup. They expect not to lose somebody off the show because they've increased their value to their client. And I think sometimes, you can be working away as a production manager or a lighting manager, and your client doesn't know how important, what a linchpin you are to the successful delivery of this product, which is a show. And I think, there's a lot of things that maybe production managers need to talk themselves up a bit more.
And also come up with suggestions of different ways of doing things. I think we don't often do that, and sometimes you're surprised when you do. If you find a different solution to something and you've offered it up, 9 times out of 10 people go, well, we could give that a try. Yeah. They don't want to have to think it up themselves. So
exactly. Oh my God, it's hot.
It's hot here.
Oh, it's
someone's got a question.
Hello. Well, I was just going to say, very much in support of what you were just saying and what the person over there said about job sharing. I think the hope that we have is actually what we have to hold on to is it is possible. And it is definitely possible because it's done in other countries.
Yeah,
so I was talking to a female stage manager from, I think she was from Finland fairly recently.
Oh, they've got it all the time.
And she's saying, we do 30-hour weeks.
We could learn a lot from Europe.
What? How can you, and the conversation was sort of inconceivable in UK practice.
Well, there's a lot of myths,
how on earth are you doing, you only rehearse 30 hours a week then? And she's like, no, we just swap. We just do good paperwork and we share it. Like it's the most obvious thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
But over here, it's like, no, don't be silly, the DSM's got to be in the room, every single day, every single minute that the director is in that room as well. And the attitude...
We're set in our ways.
Like, they thought we were on another planet to be going, what do you mean you work that many hours?
Do you know what's really
possible?
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting, actually, is you look at, say, a hospital, and your doctor has to go home and go to bed, and another doctor comes along. These are people who are responsible for your life, and they get to do it. So what is this myth that we can't do it, that this industry, somehow, each individual for lighting, production, sound, stage management, is indispensable and absolutely not possible that you can...
It's a mindset, it's an ego.
It's also money.
Yes, but
it's
you think
also,
it's money, but
the
it's
management
economy.
going, I'm not paying 2 people to do that one job.
Yeah, well, yes, but also, I think
that's so much part of it.
Can I just say, I just wanted to, we're having a lot of male voices at the moment.
Sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine.
Should we go to questions?
Yes, absolutely, Please, just jump in.
I have a question for Jacqui. You said you worked in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
What's it like being a woman and a stage and a production manager working out in the Middle East, where women have such restrictive laws imposed, and coming in as someone from another country as well, where we don't have those laws?
It's quite interesting. I mean, Abu Dhabi is slightly stricter than Dubai, not as strict as Saudi. I've never worked in Saudi. But you tend to find your own community there, the people that you're working in. I think in any culture, in any different culture we go into, we respect people's culture. We should. I think we should. And so therefore, you know, if I went to the local mosque or visited it, I wouldn't be in my shorts and vest. You know, they ask you to cover up and be respectful. They found it really difficult that there was a female production manager in the house though. They really struggled with that. They, to the extent of, they weren't always confident taking that instruction, thinking, for example, David's asked Jacqui to ask you. It's like, no, the buck stops here. There's nobody above me. And they really struggled with seniority.
I found that when we get out in the UK.
Yes.
Being doubted that you know how to pack the wagon, that you pack every week and blah, 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 blah.
You've packed it for 6 weeks already, yeah.
You have to have your tools of how to deal with that thing.
I did a tour of Pakistan. I was 21. I had no idea what I was putting myself in for. And I'd done the tour of the UK, it was just me and a van, and we did the relights and everything. Anyway, we shipped everything out there. But, and I managed to leave the sound tapes on the aeroplane, reel to reel in those days. And I left them in the aeroplane, and they phoned the hotel to say that they thought it was a bomb, and they'd send the bomb to Belgium. But anyway, I went into the venue, and basically we'd taken some old lights from, who's that guy? John Law. Jim Law, I can't remember. Anyway, and they basically took the lights, and they just cut off the plugs and hardwired them in. But the thing that was amazing is they could not understand that was a woman in charge, exactly that thing. And it took them probably about 2 hours to then decide to call me.
To speak to your manager.
Probably was, yes, they said, who's your manager? I said, it's me. And then they decided that they'd call me Sir, and they made me an honorary man. And then it was all right. Just another one. Okay.
That's brilliant. Right, well, it's 4:15. Has anybody got anything else that they would like to say? Because we are boiling.
I was just wanting to ask for quite a long time about that sort of issue and how aware you guys are of it, both in terms of status and pay.
What? The issue being
discriminated
against.
Either blatantly or...
Oh, we're very aware of it. I think what I'm sort of fascinated by, actually, is this difference in communication styles. And, you know, I was, sorry, I didn't mean to be facetious when I said we're hearing a lot of male voices, but I was just saying that, actually, I think, be aware of how much your voices dominate a meeting. Because I think that's, well, from my own personal experience, in a group, I have very good working relationships with a load of men I work with on a one-to-one, always. But get in a room with other men, and there seems to be a competitive energy between men. I mean, I'm generalising, of course, but that's what I've noticed over the years, the biggest thing. And suddenly my voice is drowned out, I'm talked over, and I'm not listened to. Now, I don't believe, on the whole, that is intentional. But I think we've been brought up in a world where, you know, you see it's in every pore and being that we are, you know, that we've been brought up as. And we are not aware of it. And I think what I want to say is be aware of it and just be conscious of changing that dynamic. And I do not sit in rooms with men where men just call it out and go, oh, hold on a minute, we're doing all the talking, what do you think? Not in a patronising way, but just being aware of it. And I think we're at the start of a, hopefully, change. And the change needs to be taken on by men. It shouldn't, but you know, I spoke to somebody today who said, oh, I thought it might come, but I don't know if it should, is it just for women? It's not just for women. This is an issue that we need you to be as on board and own and feel a part of. And I think that's the change we need to make. Because we've been talking about this shit for years.
Oh my God, yes.
You know, as women. And I still feel slightly anxious that men are just sitting there going, no, I want you to be a part of it. And I think that's what I feel, the more you own it with us, the better it'll be.
Yeah, I think also, as we are women of a certain age, that we're slightly less, we're more fearless now of that. I mean, when I was a young production manager, I'd be in a room full of guys and feel hugely intimidated. And again, as a touring production manager, you've got to get in there, you've got to get in with the venue, you've got to not crack the whip, but you've got to bring a team together and get them to work together.
Within the first half hour.
Absolutely. Within your toolbox talk. Like, let's do it, let's work together.
Which is harder if you're a woman.
And it's much harder if you're a woman.
And it's harder when they then just turn around and say you're being dominating.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's
not that you're trying to share your experience.
But you kind of, I'm not so scared of it, but when I was younger, I was terrified of it.
I still get, that's not to say, I walk into rooms and I still feel intimidated by it, so that's not changed.
I still bristle when I get asked to do things that involve women, a woman's voice, because sometimes, you know, I've ended up in situations where I've been bombarded from both sides, you know, for various reasons. And there's a life cycle of a woman through this industry that, you know, you have to respect that the person who's coming in at the early stages does not want to raise their head above the parapet. They don't want to be identified as a member who's fighting for women's rights.
Because you were saying about wives that it started 10 years ago, and the younger women, at that time, but a lot of them didn't want to. And I came and talked on a panel, and even I felt a bit like, I don't know if I really want to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we all
big
did.
women kids, because I've never tried to, I've just sort of ignored that part. I just am getting on with it.
Yeah.
I think going back to your point about how men need to be more aware of their voice, I mean, from my own personal experience, I've always been the person to push myself through to where I am now, and it's only really because I did an apprenticeship with the Albert Hall, and now I've managed to go freelance, and that was a really good platform for me. But before that, it really took a big push from me, and there was a lot of discrimination, and there was always this term I always used, like only women in the room, and like it makes it really obvious, and I don't even realise it until a man turns around to me and goes, "Oh, don't break a nail, love," and then I turn around like, "Oh, hang on, I'm literally the only woman in the room again." But like, I think men are becoming more aware of it. Definitely from what I've seen recently, is people have turned around to me and said, "You know, we hear you're a really good technician. There's a lot of good technicians here, but I'd really like to have a girl on my team." Because I think they subconsciously work harder, and because they subconsciously work harder because they've got to prove themselves, it makes the guys work harder too. And I mean, I'm the only girl on a team now of lots of guys, and they're really respectful of me. And you know, and my initial kind of interest was because I was a woman. So I think it can definitely swing in our favour in that sense.
I think that's really interesting, because I think that's the first step. I think it's great. I know lots of male managers who are really, really proactively trying to get a balance in their team. That's fabulous. But the next step is how we communicate. And I think it's the first stage, but actually I'm sort of interested in the second stage, you know, of how we change the conversation and the tone and communication. And that's harder to do because that's so ingrained in us all. So yeah, I think that's great, but it's almost like we need to start talking about it together and outing it and calling it. And that should come both sides. If men start calling it out, you know, if one of you said in the room, actually, you're talking too much, I want to hear what you've got to say, that will start making change.
Yeah.
You know, small steps.
And for as many of the young technicians and people who are coming through, who are both male and female, who are very aware of it, I find it astonishing still that there are still some quite young members of this industry who speak in the most patronising way, even to people of our generation, in the most unbelievably patronising way, because they don't know any other way. And there are still a lot of those, and they are the younger generation still. So for as many of the young people who are brilliant with it, there are still a huge number.
But they need to be called out by managers.
But perhaps they're learning it from the managers, which is just, as I was saying, I was thinking, they're surrounded by...
Well, they're being allowed to get away with it.
There's somebody
There's
at
a
the
lady
back.
at the back there.
I was just going to ask, because you were talking about the mentorship with the Production Managers Forum, and you were talking about WISE. For people who are, like the lady at the front, technicians, stage managers who want to make the leap, is there a formal mentorship program? Will there be one? Is WISE still going?
WISE, we were talking about it, and we thought
Actually,
maybe this is
mug.
this is have you? It's not right actually, and I've got a spoon that says stir it up for WISE. Anyway, God, I can't believe that was 10 years ago. But anyway, we still have a Facebook channel, we still have a LinkedIn group. We did suddenly, like you said actually, we were all doing our jobs, we were really, really busy. It took a huge amount of energy to push it forward in any way. We did try getting sponsorship from the industry, and we did quite well out of that, but then we found that we were accountable to certain things that all became a bit, we have no idea how to set up some kind of organisation like that. But there is a Facebook page, and many people have said let's get it going again. So maybe we'll start getting a bit more proactive on that Facebook page. It's easy to find, and you know, we've got a WhatsApp group already of us lot for women in production management. So if you want to drop your telephone number to us, we'll add you to our WhatsApp group.
I don't put me on there, but it's fine.
Yeah, you are on there.
I
Yeah, just
And then can you join the Production Managers Forum if you're not a production manager?
Yes, it's for everybody.
Get ideas.
Entirely open and not terribly functional.
There's a question from...
Yeah, no, I kind of just wanted to add on that. I think it would be brilliant if there was some kind of like group that everyone could kind of just join. Not even for like women, but for like everyone, just even about like the mentoring for production managers and things. Or even like...
I think, you know, that you see so many Facebook pages, don't you?
Oh, I know, there's so many of them.
Kind of female technician pages, this page, and, you know, riggers pages, all sorts. So you kind of have to be careful that it just doesn't dilute into nothingness, really.
Exactly.
And you know, I still think that there's a place, and it'd be really exciting if WISE kicked off again. And PMF, we're kind of struggling to kind of keep going, but you know, shit, we're all busy people, aren't we? But you can certainly find PMF on Facebook. Have a look at the website that is still running. Get your name down.
I know, especially what you're talking about when it comes to men being patronising at times, and forgive me if this is a bad question, but I'm seeing it even still at drama school, where even with male students who are talking down to female students. I was wondering if you guys had any tips or tricks or anything, you know, anything really that you can say in a professional manner to kind of.
I have a really good tip, and only because it happened to me. Is you look them straight in the eye and you say, I would really appreciate it that you never speak to me like that ever again.
Just call them out for saying that's inappropriate.
It's inappropriate.
Yeah.
I've done that, and I've done that at uni, and have been kind of ridiculed for it.
That's
you know, like, is there anything? I don't know if there's anything else.
I think that's when you're like in a professional state with the world, your managers have to step in. I've been on a truck where I've been truck driver saying inappropriate things to female crew that were unloading it, and I went to the truck driver and I said you cannot speak to him. I then took it back and I escalated it to his manager, and what he said was not just sexist, it was completely and utterly inappropriate. So I escalated it with his boss, and I went, you need to deal with this, and I need to know that you dealt with it, because that is offensive and insulting to a member of my crew. It doesn't matter what gender they are, I don't care. If you said that to a man, I would have said the same thing. The gender is irrelevant, it's the statement of what's said, but it has to come from managers looking after their staff, and it has to, people need to feel that they're in an environment that escalates stuff like that if it's wrong, because it's the same
thing as if somebody was physically abusive to you. Verbal abuse is also inappropriate, so you just deal with it in a management status and you escalate the problem.
But I think what this lady said, you have to call them out.
Yeah.
You have to.
I mean, it's interesting, you know, hearing that, which is absolutely right, but I think back to when I was in my 20s and the things I put up with, I never called out, I never talked about,
That's why I do it, because I just used to take it.
But it is a different environment now.
No, it is, and I think it's really important. But I feel embarrassed that I did nothing.
I think we all do, because I mean, you know, the industry has probably been created on banter and everything, be it appropriate or inappropriate. But now I think circumstances have shifted, that it is, people should feel empowered if they feel intimidated or if something is said which is entirely inappropriate, be it racist, sexist or anything else. People should expect to be called out if they say something inappropriate.
But we don't want to lose the banter as well. I mean, I think that's really key, you know, that we don't want to end up in a situation where it's because that's partly why I love the industry,
of course.
I think we balance it though, and I think the good thing about the production industry is still there's a wide range of ages in it. You know, we haven't ended up with it becoming dominated. So there's a wide range of ages, there's a wide range of experiences, and hopefully there's always someone somewhere that you can go to and find some help in some way or other. Whether it's in the production itself or it's beyond the production. But I think, you know, everybody should have somebody that can go, is this right? Because I remember at the Royal Opera House, I was working there and it was only my friend in the pub that told me, you do know that what's going on here is not right. In the way that they spoke to me, the way that they treated me, their whole attitude, and it ended up in a very messy place. But, you know, I didn't know. I normalised behaviour that was absolutely and utterly despicable. And, you know, people should have been hauled over the coals, but they weren't. Anyway, hey-ho, these things happened a long time ago. I hope it's never happened again.
You've had come across similar things like that in your work?
I think I've been lucky in most cases, and certainly being a resident as a production manager in a venue where I started out, I've earned that trust from the departments I work with, and the respect. And likewise, I trust and respect them entirely. And I think there is a boundary there. They know that when I'm production managing a show, they know that I'm in charge of that. But they've learnt that with me as I've grown in the post, I think. I don't think when I came into the job, the team, the departments were kind of fairly well established. They've been there, a lot of people have been there a long time. But I wasn't coming into that post going, right, I'm in charge now. And so they were kind of able to kind of learn that I was, you know, whilst I was going to take a lead on things, I wasn't coming in being their boss. So I think I built those relationships with all my male colleagues within those departments, and they, you know, I don't take any mess in, obviously.
No messing.
No messing, but also I don't feel like I have felt intimidated by them at any point, really.
Speaking as a male colleague, I think Hannah's had to work much harder than a man would have had to do in her position to get there, you know, which ties in with what you were saying.
You have to work twice as hard to earn
Yes,
stars.
I think so. That's interesting, because I don't feel like I have
I'm sure
had
you
to.
don't.
And I, you know, whether that...
natural.
But maybe that's it, we just work.
I think subconsciously we probably have done. I feel like I wouldn't have said that, but actually subconsciously I felt I had to prove myself over the years.
I always felt I had to have more qualifications to do the same job as people who had less qualifications. Anyway, so this has been a very interesting talk, but I think we're all turning into
get a bell.
Yeah, brilliant.
So thank you for coming along.